Okay, welcome. We're here. It's Monday, 17 April. Thank you, guys. It's Monday, 17 April in the year of our Lord 2021. We've got a lot to get to. I had some clips I'm going to play, but let me get right into it. I got Naomi Wolf. Naomi, Dr. Wolf, first of all, I want to talk about the book. I want to get into your newest reports. So I want to talk about the book, and particularly the book party that we've got coming up and how people can attend, where they have to go, etc. Because we want as many of the fans of your work in the War Room Posse's work in this book to make sure they go, because you're going to have other announcements there too. We're going to have some other announcements. So walk me through it. Give me the details of that, and then I want to get into some of the newest research, which, quite frankly, ma'am,
Yes.
you know, Naomi, you're great because you send me this research and then I can't sleep at night because it's like it's like mess my head up because at each one. But it also gets me angry in the fact that they're not held accountable yet. And I think that's one of the things that drives you and why I'm so excited about the book part. Go through the book launch first, or the book celebration, I guess it is. When's that going to be, the timing, and then we'll get into research.
So the party itself is at a private home, and I'm not at liberty to, much as fun as it would be to open it up to everyone, but we'll be celebrating at Landini Brothers afterwards. And if War Room Posse want to come by and say hi and meet the volunteers, get a book, that's a wonderful informal way to do it. And that'll be 9:00. Landini Brothers is in Alexandria, Old Town, right on the main street of Old Town there. And we'd love to meet you all there. And the book has gone back for a fourth printing, so we'll have 200 there to give or sell to lucky people who show up and want to celebrate and meet these amazing heroes who are going to be there. Some of them are going to be representing the volunteers. Dr. Chris Flowers, notably. Amy Kelly, the legendary Amy Kelly, is going to be there. She's going to say a few words, which is really something because she's an incredibly modest person for such an extraordinary heroine of our time. And these legends are going to be there, and it's definitely time to celebrate. Fourth printing, the truth getting out in a way that really can't be spun, smeared, silenced anymore. At least that's what I'm seeing, since publication.
By the way, so 9 p.m. at Landini Brothers, Captain Bannon will be there. Anybody wants to come by, that'd be great in Alexandria. The book, I'm just so proud of what you've been able to accomplish with this book. When you talk about 4 printings when it's just a couple of months out of the gate, walk me through some of your latest research, because it's incredibly disturbing.
Yeah, each time I've said this so many times before, each time I think it can't get worse, it can. So there are 2 recent reports. One of them is by Dr. Robert Chandler, who your audience will recognize, the distinguished sports medicine physician who has treated the Angels and the Lakers and many famous sports teams. And he has report 67. And by the way, he's the person who identified that lipid nanoparticles were accumulating in the ovaries, and also identified the fact that women keep being overrepresented by a factor of 4 to 1, all the way to 8 to 1 in the adverse events. So I kind of feel like my gender owes him a big debt. But report 67 says rhabdomyolysis, aka quote unquote jellied muscle after mRNA gene therapy. And so it explains that rhabdomyolysis is a process involving the catastrophic breakdown of skeletal or striated muscle. And from middle school biology class that striated muscle is the muscle that is voluntary as opposed to involuntary, with release of muscle components that have a toxic physiological effect on the whole person and can be difficult to manage medically. A bad case, a florid case, that's medical lease for a bad case, often has a fatal outcome. So it's bad. And here you also see the involvement once again of the kidney, which we're seeing over and over and over, and the involvement of hypotension subsequent to the mRNA injection. And you see a whole kind of chart showing how this happens. So this graphic is by someone named Dr. Singh, and it illustrates how rhabdomyolysis works, but basically it's characterized by myalgias. And I just want to remind everyone, it's so horrible at this point in the investigations when things check back with other things you already know and deepen and confirm them. You all remember that I say this over and over, the number one side effect, it's so surprising in the Pfizer documents, is joint pain. And literally up and down my neighborhood, I don't want to identify the street, predictably, it's so tragic. My neighbors are having shoulder replacements, knee replacements, hip replacements, arthritis. A relative broke a part of her spine. I mean, people's joints are failing. But the second most common side effect is myalgia. And this is a word that, we need to understand better. It means muscle pain. And also the second of the triad, three things, is muscle weakness. And also, red to brown urine due to myoglobinuria. So basically what's happening is that that this classic triad of complaints is representative, and it's observed in 1 to 10% of cases. It develops over hours to days, and this is just breaking my heart because one of my best friends suffers from this and didn't have the answer, didn't have the explanation. In hospitalized patients with rhabdomyolysis, muscle pain affects 23 to 80% of patients. And it's in the thighs and the shoulders, lower back, calves, stiffness, cramping, and then there's muscle weakness. And actually someone on social media today pointed out that they can recognize people who have been vaccinated with the mRNA vaccines often because of their kind of weak limbs. And I've noticed that too, that when this is terrible to say, but it's true. Often when you hug someone who's vaccinated, you can feel how frail their arms are, how frail their musculature is, even if they're healthy young people who were like robust before the injection. So muscle weakness may be present depending on the severity of muscle injury. For 12 to 70% of patients with this disease, there's swelling, myoedema, meaning the swelling in your body, peripheral edema, which is pitting and occurs with rehydration. And I mentioned the horrible urine, and there's also respiratory protein released. So basically, these are symptoms of the spike protein produced gene therapy. And that's the causative agent according to the peer-reviewed paper that Dr. Chandler cites below. And they go on, and I won't go into detail because it's a very detailed paper, but they go on to examine the evidence supporting this assertion, and also looking at case reports with the VAERS reporting system, a whole other database, which also shows horribly elevated levels of this muscle inflammation, muscle weakness. And so they call it vaccine-related painful myopathy. There's maybe your wonderful producer can show the images. A 56-year-old woman is suffering from this. And you can see magnetic resonance imaging of the left shoulder showing the swelling, the edema. And so basically it's involving multiple organs. It's not just joints, it's not just muscles. It affects the blood, it affects the kidneys. It's that same kind of necrosis that we are seeing in placentas. And so the conclusion is that this is a result of the injection, and it's very sad conclusions. He concludes that once rhabdomyolysis initiates, there's little to do to slow or stop the process. Medical care consists of managing the fluid. Dialysis is necessary in some cases. So he says that an incidence of 3,270 cases in 2 full years of mass COVID-19 gene therapy inoculations and 261 fatalities, or 8% of all the cases that have been reported. And he asks, how many deaths is too many? What is the morbidity, meaning the illness that will result in death of the survivors? These are vital questions that need answering. So there you have it. And I know that many people listening to this are probably thinking, "Oh, that's my dad, that's my grandpa, that's my grandma. They're suffering, they're achy, they're full of swelling, they're weak, and they don't know why."
How do we've got about a minute and a half. How do you take that with all the people we know that are complaining about this? What's the next step? You've done the core report. Where does this go from here?
Well, as always, our first recourse is legal. And so we are still at 14 states that have received letters to the Attorney General from our team of lawyers, and our dedicated team suing Pfizer still has reached the point where they have a judge and they're awaiting presenting this material in front of a judge. But what I would say now is we need to bring this to Congress, and we need to bring this to state houses. So every day we're bringing it to the European members of the European Parliament, or we're bringing it to doctors. There are all these dissident doctors groups all over the world, and we bring it to medical people in Australia, but we need to bring it to legislators in our own country. And there's a very good bill that you can see on BillCam where it takes away impunity from these drug manufacturers. And in Switzerland, I didn't get a chance to tell you this when I last spoke to you, Switzerland has ended this inoculation. So we need to, do that in our own country through legislation and through presenting this material to supportive members of Congress.
I know you're going to be talking to committees and to congressmen. Has Pfizer come out at any time on any of the reports and given any kind of counter narrative, not just for the overall thing, but any specifics that you've been able to point out, or that are including these letters? Have they had the decency to come out and actually address any of these?
No, of course not. And they won't. They do. I don't know if they send out influencers to troll us and present. I mean, it's ridiculous. I could name them, but there are a number of influencers who are trying to present non-peer review. They present Google documents and represent themselves as biostatisticians and say, well, look over here. But no one can debunk this because it's completely sourced and cited, and it's correct. So what we really don't have is a lawyer's letter from Pfizer. No one has asked us to cease and desist, and it's been since January that the book has been out. So to me, that's really notable, and I think that here's what I think. It's really horrible, but I think they've made all the money they can make before they're hauled up in front of some kind of forum eventually, God willing. And so they've shifted to distractions, cultural distractions, and they've shifted to putting mRNA in the food supply, which I believe you've covered. And we, Vigilant Fox broke that story on Daily Clout. They're trying to inoculate mammals, farm animals. They're trying to get mRNA into the food that we eat. Well, you had Tom Renz on your show, and he is warning in Missouri that he's heard from agricultural interests that they're being pressured to put these injections and these materials into their animals. So he has a really simple bill. It's a good bill. It's a modest bill, just forcing that to be disclosed if you go shopping, that it'll say mRNA in your pork or mRNA in your chicken. But in the meantime, they're just trying other ways to get this material into us.
Naomi, how to get to Daily Clout, how they get there to be part of the team or to lend support, and how they get to the book.
Well, really exciting. The Moderna documents are being released. So there are 23,000 of the Moderna documents. So the team is awaiting that eagerly, and you can support us. Please do. We live and die on your memberships and donations on dailyclout.io, and you can pre-order the book there. You can come to Landini Brothers. at 9 o'clock, informal gathering. Love to see you, love to greet you and say hi. And you can read all of these if you don't have the money for a book. These are tough times. You can read all of the reports on dailycloud.io, and please just keep sending those thoughts and prayers. I mean, our team, these volunteers are such saintly people, and they just are unstoppable, and they are going to save this human race if it can be done. But they do need your thoughts and prayers. That really matters a lot.
The Moderna documents are planned on being dropped sometime in the summer. Is that the current thinking?
July, yes. And I do want to update you next time, please, on a brave midwife in Northern California who is blowing the whistle on the very damaged, compromised placentas she's seeing post-vaccination. So we have a lot of work to do to save those babies of the United States.
Naomi, Dr. Naomi Wolf, I want everybody to go to Daily Cloud. Check it out right now. Thank you. Honored to have you on here, man. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
There's a lot of talk. We got a border security bill that's coming up. It's going to be another massive fight. That's going to be dropped here, I think, in the next week. They're promising a vote on it in May. This is going to be a very tough border security bill. It's got a lot of the Andy Biggses and the Gates and the MTG's stuff in there. But I want to go, there's a lot of talk about, and President Trump has talked about this, about actually calling the Mexican drug cartels terrorist organizations. One of the things we advocated very early on in the first term. President Trump would commit to do it in the second term. I asked Colonel John Mills. Colonel Mills, you've got a presentation. I want you to walk us through the drug cartels, your assessment, and some of the linkages that go with some of our mortal enemies, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Steve. It's an honor to go through this. We got to start changing the mindset. This is not a law enforcement action. This is a military action. And declaring them a terrorist organization is an important legal step toward taking them on directly. I just quickly here, 100% of the formulary components of fentanyl come from China, go to Mexico. They are now being made in Mexico with the enablement of Chinese paramilitaries, an important legal term. Okay, a DE map, this is actually a little bit out of date, but again, it's coming from Mexico, coming from China to Mexico and coming across our unsecure southern border. This is unrestricted warfare, whether it's the virus, the vaccine, or fentanyl. This is unrestricted warfare to defeat us. Now on Friday,
hold on.
DOJ
hang on 1 second before we get there. When you say when the fentanyl gets there, they're now Chinese paramilitaries. We know there's a lot of Chinese nationals coming through the Darien Gap. We know there's a lot of Chinese nationals coming through our southern border. When you say there's Chinese paramilitaries in Mexico working with them for the final formulation of the fentanyl, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, these are actually their intelligence community personnel, special operations personnel, and we have to treat them, paramilitary is a legal term that would treat them as combatants on the battlefield. So we got to get out of this law enforcement mindset. And on Friday, Garland has reacted to the pressure, decided to get into the game. It was helpful, but we got to go a lot further than this. But ladies and gentlemen, we're losing 70,000 a year. That's more than the entire 14 years of the Vietnam War or the 20 years of the War on Terror combined in 1 year. 70,000 dead. These are not drugs, these are poisons. So on Friday, DOJ announced a whole bunch of indictments and also identified Chinese companies. So this is very important here. And they named 4 Chinese nationals specifically. I could only find 2 of the names and pictures. Kenny Jing On Chan, also carrying firearms during heroin trafficking, and Chuan Yep, but also 2 companies. Ladies and gentlemen, this is unrestricted warfare waged against the American people. We are all suffering right where we live. And they say, well, we've indicted them, but it's going to be hard to get to them. Why? Because they're operating the business. I would say at this point in time, they're not just enabling, they are de facto directing the different cartels. So we have Chinese paramilitaries, a legal term of art that is necessary for us to take this out of the law enforcement domain of instruments of national power into the military. 70,000 dead. 70,000 dead. That is insanity. A heat map, a little bit out of date, but this is the latest that's out there on where the deaths are occurring. Zombieville, what is it in Philadelphia, San Francisco? This is being caused by the Chinese CCP and fentanyl. Okay, this is a really important map. The next one here, because this shows the ports of entry, and we're going to go into detail here as we pivot from treating this as a law enforcement phenomenon to a military. Americans are dying. Mazatlan, Manzanillo, Lazaro Cardenas, Acapulco, the ports of entry, and these are the likely areas where the five blue bubbles is where they are assembling the components now into pills in northern Mexico. Hermosillo, Ciudad Obregón, Culiacan, Torreon, Monterrey. This is important as we understand this and we start conducting.
But hang on, but hang on a second. Just go back to the blue bubbles. I want to connect that to what DOJ did with I think the arrest of 34 people, and what you said earlier on, that they have Chinese operatives, paramilitary and other operatives working with the cartels in those areas to actually do the final formulation and to put it into pill form.
And then distribute into the United States, absolutely, across our unsecure southern border. This is a national security imperative. We are not being compassionate by allowing the absolute onslaught from across the border. There's nothing compassionate about that. Just the rapes and murders that are occurring. And in addition, it's all about the fentanyl business right now, which is unrestricted warfare from China and China paramilitaries essentially at this point in time directing gang activity. Now, this is the three major gangs here. The Sinaloa kind of in the northwest, Tamalpayas kind of over here on the Gulf Coast, and Tierra Caliente down around here. Now, this is a fluid map. This is from Drug Enforcement Information. It's a little bit fluid, but ladies and gentlemen, this is what Rumsfeld would call ungoverned space. There is no government in Mexico. There are some trusted parts of the military, especially the Mexican Navy and Marines, that have shown to be somewhat untouchable. But ladies and gentlemen, this is out of control, ungoverned space right next to us. And I have relatives right along the border in Arizona.
When you talk about military operations, though, these are de-shrink. Compare that and contrast it to what we did with FARC and what we've done down in Colombia, because those were remote areas too. But here, if you're going to actually target those, most of this is not on the northern border. The shipments coming through are, but if you want to get to the heart of where these operations are, you would actually have to go deep into Mexico, would you not, sir?
Absolutely. And this is where we have to start conducting operational preparation of the environment and intelligence preparation of the environment to identify exactly who is doing what where. This is where we have to start doing this, and we're going to get into this here. This is one of the potential production areas, Ciudad Obregón. As I was studying, immediately what stood out to me was the airport down here. If you look closely at the airport, you can't see it here, but if you look closely, and I did, there's nothing but business jets at this airport. Well, who in the world has business jets in Mexico? Also, you got a high-speed avenue of approach here with the freeway system. So this is one of your production areas. Let's go to the next one. This is the first port, Mazatlan. Mazatlan is interesting. The next two are far more interesting. Now, this is there's a big pier over here to the side I'm not showing, which is primarily cruise ship traffic. This is what's called a break bulk ship. This is the old days where manually by hand you load it, unload it. Okay, interesting, possible, but that's not efficient and it's not secure because the stuff gets stolen among the thieves and the terrorist gangs down there. Okay, now this is far more interesting. This is Manzanillo. This is the number one container terminal in Mexico, Manzanillo, and they're expanding this. And this has about a 50-foot draft, so it could take about not the largest yet. They're going to have to go to about 60-foot draft. But this is very interesting because I was moving and you wanted safe and efficient container traffic. That's where it's at. And so very large, this would be the seventh largest in America. This is Mexico's number one port. It would be the seventh largest in America on the American scale. So this is Manzanillo, and just right a little further down the coast. Okay, the next one, Lazaro Cardenas, again, another big container port. So this is when we start to develop operationally and the intelligence preparation of the battle space for action. These are the ones that immediately start getting attention. Now, the DEA also listed Acapulco outside of ABC Wide World of Sports and high diving. I'm not looking at this as an efficient entry point. Maybe smaller components, but I think the previous two, those are the ones. So let's start talking about this as we start pivoting. So what does it take to pivot from law enforcement action to military action? These are the basic components. These are the steps, and I've done this in a number of operations. But first and foremost, we do need some legislation and law directing this. And again, that looks like there's growing bipartisan support for declaring this the Sinaloa cartel. And it has to be because of these Chinese embeds. They are part of the terrorist organization. This starts taking out of the law enforcement world into the military world. We have to designate a lead department. This is what you have to designate a lead official. This is how you do it. And we're not going to give this to the IC. We can't trust them, for direct action. This is going to be a Title X thing. So my suggestion, Department of Defense. And you have to establish a joint interagency task force.
Colonel, can you hang on just for 1 second? I know you got to bounce, but I want to just hold you over for a minute until we come back.
Stay
Colonel
a
John Mills. Okay, about the shift from law enforcement to actually looking at the possibility of kinetic events against the Mexican drug and human trafficking cartel. Short commercial break. The Hofts are going to join us. Big breaking news at a Gateway Pundit. Also, Joe Allen's going to tee up the Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, artificial intelligence tonight.
Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. We got Colonel Mills. We got more in this briefing to do, so I'm going to work with Colonel Mills and either do it tomorrow morning or Wednesday morning. But I do want to finish this one slide. Look, a lot of people are going to say this is another crazy idea. This is eventually going to happen because we're not going to continue to tolerate, and you can't stop it at the border. You can't. You got to go into where it's coming into their country and being put together, and you got to interdict this. So walk me through. Go back up. I just want to go through the slide, but you say a law or something like that's going to be passed. That could take too long. What do we need to do to actually operationalize this so that you declare them a terrorist organization and then DOD can get on with it?
Yeah, the president has the authority to go through and declare them a terrorist organization. And we start the DOD planning. Now, it's State Department's job is to work with Mexico and let them know what's going to happen, whether they like it or not, because it's ungoverned space. Unfortunately, we need a functional State Department. Even if this was a DOD-led operation, you still need a functional State Department. We've never had worse relationships with Mexico, and they won't even take State Department's calls right now. One key thing I want to highlight here is the advance force. This is very important. The leak showed us, because we need to retrograde some of our existing advance forces. The leak showed us we got 50 boots on the ground in the Ukraine and 900 in Syria. That's 950. That's a lot. We need to retrograde them, rest them, reset them. These are advance force. This is a very specific. These are units that are not acknowledged to be DOD units. The term advanced force is unclassified. These actual units and who they are classified. But these are the tip of the spear into developing the situation. This is who you push out. We got to develop the situation because they're key in developing. We got the target list and refining it. They're going to be the eyes on the ground, okay? And they're special. They're experts at this. They're incredible. And so we're going to have to develop the maritime, air, and ground elements, a quick reaction force in case they need help, and just start developing. It's called the Joint Operations Planning and Execution System. President tells SecDef and Chairman, start the planning process. Start the planning process. And part of the forcing function of legislation is, President, you better get on this, or we're going to direct you to get on this.
Who do you see? You say it's a joint, you guys put up a joint task force with a joint operational structure. Who do you see heading this up? What would be your recommendation of who would pull this together?
And the key term is it's a joint interagency. But I feel it should be the best is Title 10, meaning Department of Defense. And then very likely it would be Special Operations Command within Department of Defense. And they would be the lead within Department of Defense. DOD is the lead agency. You designate a lead agency, everybody else falls in and supports that lead agency. Within DOD, most likely SOCOM would be the lead agency. Everybody falls in and support. So that's where we need to, they're getting distracted in Syria. They're getting distracted in Ukraine. They need to secure America at the border. They need to be focused in the Pacific too. And so we need to get them where they need to be. Right now, they're out of place and out of position.
Colonel Mills, I know a lot of people want to find out about your social media, maybe contact you, direct message. Where do they go? We're going to have you back on. We got more charts, more maps, more all of it. We're going to get to that maybe in the next couple of days. But where do people go for this introductory briefing? Where do they go?
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to post this on Substack. So I'm Colonel Rhett John on Substack, Colonel Rhett John on Substack, also Colonel Rhett John on Getter and Truth, Colonel Rhett John on Getter and Truth. And the book about the deep state is on thenationwillfollow.com, thenationwillfollow.com.
An incredible book about your journey. Colonel Mills, thank you very much for doing this. Thank you for the initial briefing. I look forward to having you on here to finish it.
Thank you, Steve. Always an honor to be with you.
We're not messing around the war room. This is, look, the cartels are with the Chinese are at war with us. The Chinese Communist Party is at war with us. Unrestricted warfare. They got these massive paramilitary operations down in Mexico. They're at war with us and they're destroying us. And we're just not going to tolerate anymore. You just can't. We're not going to let 70,000 American citizens die every year from this. And it's getting worse. And people have talked about it for years. It's now time to look at direct action. Okay, we'll put up the direct action plan. That's the bid. Give me a bid away. Show me what else you got. This is why I remember we take the hard line on the debt and we take the hard line on everything and then see what they got. And you know what they got? They got nothing. And then they start to come to your because they can't back it up with any logical arguments. The Hofts, we got a big victory. I've been trying to track down Jim and Joe on this. Jim Hoft joins us. I think he's in Asia. Jim, thank you for either getting up. I think you're getting up at dawn to join us here. Tell us about the big Gateway Pundit win, sir.
Hey, Steve, thanks for having us on. Yes, I'm on assignment in Asia currently, but we did get up early so that we could join you. This is a wonderful news, Steve. And as you know, we're in a very critical period in our history of the country. And so I'm very pleased to announce that the Gateway Pundit won a amazing lawsuit in the state of Arizona. It was settled this week. And the Maricopa County officials have agreed to pay the Gateway Pundit $175,000 in this First Amendment rights lawsuit. They prevented one of our reporters, the great Jordan Conradson, who you've interviewed, an amazing talent who's in Arizona. They refused to allow him in the press room during election time. We filed charges. The first court we went through with this Judge Tucci denied us this privilege, this actual right we have in this country to report and to have freedom of speech. So we took it further to the circuit court, and they favored our side, and Maricopa County came back. We went back and forth a few times, and then we settled this past week. So it's great news for all Americans, and especially independent media, wow. Steve, like Real America's Voice and Gateway Pundit and others.
Well, it's also for the citizens. I remember we covered this live, and they cut him out. So this is huge news. By the way, that's Conradson's. Is that his monthly salary, or is that cover him for like a quarter or 2 months? He's a big ticket guy, right?
Yeah, he certainly is. I wish we could pay him that much because he's certainly worth it. But unfortunately, that was not his salary that we settled on.
Before I let you go, I know you're in assignment. We'll get to that at another time. But I would like that we had a win here because you were in the right. You had tough lawyers and you dug in. I'd like to see some wins on the Kerry Lake situation and actually turn this thing around. Before I let you go, give me your assessment of that.
Yeah, I think we've been speaking with Kerry's lawyers. I think they're doing everything they can. Again, Steve, I think if Democrats are allowed to, and any state, if they're allowed to have 61% of the machines broke down on election day, that isn't a fair election. You know that, I know that. That's ridiculous. It should have been overturned a long time ago. I think they have a great case. I hope this goes forward. Steve, another thing is we have two other cases I wanted to mention briefly. We're in a lawsuit with Robert Kennedy Jr. against the Trusted News Initiative. These are mainstream media outlets that came together to, again, discriminate against the smaller independent media outlets. That case is ongoing. We're playing offense there. We're also the lead plaintiff in the Missouri and Louisiana lawsuit against the Biden administration. And that, of course, has other plaintiffs, Dr. Bhattacharya, some other esteemed doctors who are on that lawsuit. That's also moving forward. So we are having some wins, Steve, and we are pushing forward.
Well, not
and, this is how we
you're
do
having
it.
huge. By the way, you're having huge wins. The Missouri and Louisiana's got all the deposition. What are you talking about? You're always on offense, Hoft. That's the one thing. The one thing I can tell you is the Gateway Pundit's always on offense. Jim, what's the social media? How do people get to the site?
Thanks so much, Steve. It's thegatewaypundit.com. We're on Getter. We're on Truth Social. We're on Facebook, Twitter, all of the social media outlets. So thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you coming in from Asia.
All right.
Early in the AM.
Yes.
Thanks, brother. I got a cold open for Joe Allen. We're going to tee up the Elon and the Tucker interview tonight. We're going to be covering on Getter. Make sure you're on Getter. Stay on my account and the War Room account to get it. Maybe we'll throw Joe Allen's account in there. Joe, let's play the cold open, then we'll get Joe in.
Maybe Slametti can give us a brief overview about what we know regarding X.AI and what we've talked about so far.
Here is my summary. Elon said that AI is like a nuke, and then he said, therefore, I want my own nuke.
There's the basis of mutual assured destruction, MAD theory. And I've put forth the idea that I think Sam Altman is the Robert Oppenheimer of this era, because he has largely been the person who has been orchestrating the emergence of, GPT chat, GPT-4. And I think we have to look at it potentially as a very, very powerful weapon. Everybody wants to be a nuclear power if you're a player. And I think there's an exact correlate here that if you're a player in technology, you've got to be on this bandwagon. This week, the CEO of Epic, Tim Sweeney, he referenced the nature of artificial intelligence doubling at a faster rate than Moore's Law. And I think that there's a duplicity of sort of AI coming into this curve and fundamentally changing the curve. This is the hotspot for technological innovation.
There's another angle to this if you're trying to psychoanalyze what Elon's doing, because I've been reading his tweets for a while, and the history of this seems to go back to his history with OpenAI, right? So he and Sam Altman were co-founders. He used to essentially be the CEO of OpenAI, but he's been tweeting like, OpenAI is not open anymore. My intention was to make it open. I thought this was going to be a nonprofit. What happened to OpenAI? So I think this is kind of his effort to be like, this is what OpenAI should have been the whole time. I shouldn't just have a nuke. Everybody should have a nuke. We should all have nukes. And then, as Moshe said, I personally don't think that's a good idea. I think that's going to lead to, quick doom. But I think that's where he's coming from. I'm extremely scared of the fact that this technology exists. And one way to see it is basically from the perspective of cybersecurity. It keeps getting smarter, right? So the only variable left is it needs to get a little bit smarter. And then suddenly, it's not just going to be able to write a little bit of code like it can do now. It's going to be able to hack, right? It's going to be able to infect every computer on the entire internet in a time span of months or years from now, right? And suddenly the internet just gets disabled. We suddenly have an unusable internet. That's just one doom scenario that's very, not long-term at all.
Okay, Joe Allen joins us. Joe, explain to us who we just heard from and why is this even scarier than the 60 Minutes last night?
Yes, Steve, that was a Twitter space that was held by Mario Nawfal. And it was a 6-hour space. That was a very, very, very tiny portion of it. I think that maybe the most important person we heard from there, no offense to any of the others, but just for our purposes, is Liram Shapira. Liram Shapira was very early on when Eliezer Yudkowsky, the guy who is recommending bombing data centers overseas, coming to his support because a lot of people dismissed Yudkowsky largely on the basis of his kind of obviously neurotic personality. And Shapira has carried that torch of AI doom forward alongside Yudkowsky. The main topic that came up in this space is, why did Elon Musk sign a letter from the Future of Life Institute asking for a 6-month moratorium on any AI system above the level of GPT-4? And then just a couple of weeks later, it was revealed and then announced that Twitter is now no longer Twitter as a corporation. It's now, I think, X Holding Corporation and X.ai. And the purpose of X.ai, or one of the purposes, is going to be to develop an artificial intelligence competitor to OpenAI. Now, we've talked about this, and I've talked about it with others, and I've posted about this. I have really always maintained that I think that Elon Musk, in this instance, while I tend to doubt his intentions on many fronts, I honestly don't think that he is trying to nuke his competitor in some underhanded way, and then to just rush ahead of them. 6 months wouldn't be nearly long enough to do so. I think that, in as much as I can read somebody's mind or know their heart, I think that Elon Musk is sincere in his fears about artificial intelligence doom. And I think that this conversation, for any listeners who are really interested, this conversation goes through so many of the arguments for and against artificial intelligence, for and against the existential risk of artificial intelligence, and also for and against whether or not Elon Musk has the best intentions.
I gotta. He has terrible intentions. Everything he does is terrible intentions. Anybody that doesn't think that is a complete and total moot. But I digress. Let me step back to the thing itself, the main thing. There is nothing that this can do for humanity or this planet right now that comes close to offsetting the dangers of this. That's the only question before us. This could have tremendous benefits for mankind. It could have tremendous benefits for the planet. But the unknown of this, the known unknowns of this, and the unknown unknowns of this are to the 10th power greater. And we've had, in the last 48 hours, and we'll see it on Tucker tonight, I hope at least some of it, when you have Google and DeepMind, the lack of maturity, the lack of discernment, the lack of basically common sense in decision making to allow the people that are there now developing, these cannot be looked at right now as anything but a technology that will be weaponized, used as a weapon, as virtually every technology in mankind's history that have been from fire to the wheel to the internal combustion engine to steam, all of it, to the airplane, has always been looked at and initially looked to be its weapon. This is something that is 50x more powerful than nuclear weapons, the famous N-word of President Trump. And I'm calling for it now, and I'm now working behind the scenes 24/7 on this. We are entering uncharted territory with people you cannot trust. The good guys you can't trust because they're just not mature enough to make these decisions. And we have it on record where they're saying we're having heated debates. They don't, between hallucination, emergent properties, black box, and many other things. This is just the simplistic stuff we're seeing right now. That's not in the weapons lab. That's not in the Chinese weapons lab. And I don't mean to be an alarmist, but let me be a realist. The gentleman who's now become kind of not a pariah, but he's sitting there going, you have to look at the data centers because the data centers where you have the big muscle that can drive this forward. And anybody that doesn't sign basically a treaty or pact right now that we will lay down all weapons and all data centers will stop any more development of AI, at least for the foreseeable future, and it may be much longer than 6 months. you should take out with missiles and weapons. This is that level of thing. And by the way, if you do it, because the downside is unlimited, eternal, and the upside's quite limited right now. There's just no comparison. And people that are not coming to this and thinking about this are just missing the point. We are entering a zone of danger. We spent 30 or 40 years in the most intense negotiations over arms treaty related to nuclear weapons, related to nuclear weapons because of World War II, chemical weapons because of World War I, biological weapons. With the biological weapons treaty is even not that great. Hence, the Chinese Communist Party is developing offensive biological weapons on gain of function nonstop of what we know. This is the whole Fauci situation. This makes that look like child's play. And the reason is this engine, this thing can be creating its own biological weapons without any ability of us to control it. Joe Allen, am I too much? I'm the crown prince right now of the Luddites. I'm looking for somebody that has 50 times more knowledge than me in this area to take the crown. But right now, I'm the Luddite and saying we got to go full stop and start taking out data centers that don't go full stop. Joe Allen, you got a minute to tee up Tucker and Elon tonight. Take it, brother.
Well, Steve, if I could say really quickly, I think that the danger isn't that the AI is going to become sentient and start killing people. The danger is the people using it right now. It's not in their control completely. We will be in their control to the extent that we accept this psychological operation. And I think that Elon Musk is the first to be suspected in that game. It's a nuclear arms race with artificial intelligence. He's jumping into it. He has for 10 years talked about the dangers of artificial intelligence. But as we've covered for 2 years, Elon Musk has also pursued the exact same technology that he's raising the alarms on. So from my perspective, right now, he is undoubted. From my perspective, he is undoubtedly as much a part of the problem.
7 o'clock on Getter. Stick around. We're going to replay the 60 minutes with our own live chat. 8 o'clock, Tucker Carlson, Elon Musk. We're going to do that in live chat. 9 o'clock, MTG on her new podcast. And at 10 o'clock, Royce White. How's that for a lineup? Prime time in the war room tonight. And Joe Allen will be dipping in and out of that also. Okay, get over to Getter right now. Let's focus on all of it. I'll see you up there. And then tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. live. Back in the war room.